And we're live. Welcome, Tally Book Troubleshooting. Coming to you from Odessa, Texas, heart of the Permian Basin. I'm your host, Keith Stelter. Love me some Permian Basin. May have taken me a long time to get here, but I've enjoyed my time here ever since I've got here. Tally Book Troubleshooting brought to you by Arc Energy. We process your energy, process equipment solutions, aiming plants, recondition, new, you name it, we got it. And if you notice, you know anything about me, I grew up on a farm, pretty clean cut guy. And last year I went to a little event, Sky High for Kids in San Antonio. And it was really, eye opening what they do, great organization. So, they take hair donations. So I decided I'm going to grow my hair out and give my hair away. So that's coming up closer and closer. I don't know if I can put this in the comments, if it'll come up on LinkedIn or not. We'll see. Maybe it just goes to maybe Amber. Good morning, Amber. I see you watching. Maybe you can put the link to the donation. But anyway, I'm donating my hair September 8th, Sky High for Kids, big banquet here in the Permian Basin. Kids with cancer, lots of great, they support local kids here, right? From Lubbock, Odessa, Midland, the whole area. Great organization. I can't say enough. I can't say great enough about it. Great, 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 great. Good morning. This is going to be a good show, I believe. We also got the GPA coming up. A little announcement. I'm going to be doing some podcasting from the GPA coming up from San Antonio. What's the GPA, you ask? It's the Gas Producers Association. A lot of midstream folks getting together. I went to the event last year, blew my mind. Asked JP Warren, I had him down there, and he was like, man, I hadn't seen something, oil field event like this in years. You'd be just walking up, hanging out with the CEO of a major corporation, and he just, hey, man, what's going on? And you're really there to work together with a lot of great folks. So we're 2 minutes in. Let me know where you're watching from. Bring it up on the screen. Love getting people. If you have an announcement, throw it in the comments. Maybe you got an event coming up. Let me know. We'll throw it up there. Sir, Robert Mueller, and the Oscar for Best Hair in a Short Film goes to, yes. Yes. Hopefully you guys will still watch the show once I get this haircut. I'm still hoping my wife still likes me after I get the haircut. I think she likes the hair. LinkedIn user. Good morning from Houston. It comes up as LinkedIn user because of the privacy settings. So if you go in there, change the privacy settings to public, it'll show up your name. Louise, good morning, sir. Thank you for checking it. Mike Cummings, man, thanks for tuning in, man. It's great. I know the dancing. I got to do one of the dancing videos for you one of these days. I owe you, definitely. I get that more and more these days. Thank you for that one post. It sure did make me laugh. Let's see. Amber got me. Yes. So the banquet, that's the information. Raising money. A whole bunch of us, actually. JP Warren's coming in town. JP, my guy. It's almost a little friendly competition. I think we're only like $120 apart at this point. In the end, everybody wins, no matter who wins. Mark Lancaster, thanks for tuning in, sir. Going to learn a little bit about some helium this morning, I believe. Well, at least that's black. Oh, Eric. We just had a great show about modular refineries. Man, I just can't believe what the technology is. Small footprint. You don't need federal permits. Check out Eric if you don't know him already. If you want more information, we need some of those here in the Permian. Start refining that sweet oil here instead of some of that, all that stuff along the coast. Donald, Hill Country, yes, sir. Aaron Baxter, awesome. Granbury, yes. My wife is originally from Cleburne, Texas, just down the road. Love me some Granbury. Andrea, thank you. Thank you for tuning in. Another Minute with Keith or Minute with Andrea, David Gibson alumni. She knows what's going on. Andrea, I hope you're doing well. Larry Johnson, yes. Odessa, that is definitely the place to be. I love Odessa. Zach, what? Sir, blessed that you're here. Very, very, very humbling. Thank you. Joe. Corpus Christi, like I said, when it comes up LinkedIn user in the comments, it's just because of the privacy settings. Good morning, OKC. James. Thank you, sir. Craig Williams. So, another little announcement. I'll be at the GPA. That'll be about the 12th of September. I'm going to be going to the School of Energy in New Mexico to talk to the students there, and we're going to do a little podcast there. Tyler Book Troubleshooting coming from the School of Energy next month. Coming up. I got to book my flight, Greg. Buenos dias, CQ. Buenos dias. Jake Leonard, thank you, sir. Everybody, thank you for tuning in this morning. Gonna do us. Oh, Kansas. Jeffrey Randall. Man, Jeffrey Randall. We used to work together at Weatherford. Great guy. One of the best professional engineers, wireliners in the business. Thank you, sir. Very, very humble. I hope you're doing well. Hope the new additions are doing well. The family. Are you still in Liberal there, or did you guys move? I don't. We'll have to catch up one of these days. Sydney Thompson, good morning for East Texas. Excellent, everybody. Ooh, Sherry Naismith. Sherry, you got to. So I know you got some questions here on helium this morning. It's going to be great. Robert Patterson, Houston. Sounds like we got all a Texas representative. Got Kansas. Anybody from overseas watching? Hopefully you are. Learn about helium. We're not shy to talk to anybody here. Now that my rambling is done, I think I've got all the bases. We've got a few events coming. I am working on a couple other little shows. Dehydration. We're going to be doing a GPA to learn a little bit more about the GPA coming here in the next week. Like I said, if you've never been to this GPA in San Antonio, it is quite the event. Even if you're not all midstream, I highly recommend just swinging by the hotel there, Marriott Riverwalk, and checking it out. Well, without further ado, I know you didn't tune in to see me. You want to see the man, the myth, the great, just overall human being, Mr. James Hayes, VP of Engineering. Sir, thank you very much for being with us.
Wow. Well, thanks for the introduction. Let's go ahead and just get this out right now. I know there's probably lots of folks out there thinking, hey, Keith, you're going to cut your hair off and you're probably doing it to James Hayes. That's not true. Not true. But
it's going to be very close, though, because this has been going, I'm just, on the border of how long it needs to be. So I think they're going to need most of it there. But
for sure.
Man, thanks for taking the time this morning. I know originally, I think we discussed we were going to do this starting at 9:30, and I screwed up by putting it at 9. And you did me a real solid because you're a very powerful, wise, and just man. So you moved your schedule around. So thank you, sir. Go ahead and introduce everybody. Introduce yourself to everybody. Let them know who you are and what you're doing.
Sure. Again, like Keith mentioned, James Hayes, Vice President of Engineering for a company called Desert Mountain Energy. We're actually, just for reference, we're actually a publicly traded company on both the Canadian and the USHF stock exchange. So anybody looking to invest, by all means, you can find us. Just a quick summary overview kind of about our company. We're a company that was established about 4 years ago, and the primary focus of our company is helium in the Holbrook Basin. A lot of folks may ask, well, where the heck's the Holbrook Basin? That's Arizona. If you take the state of Arizona and you break it into kind of 4 different quadrants, we're in that northeast quadrant of the state. Right now, we've got a little over 85,000 acres that we have under our name that we're looking at potentially developing in the future. And the primary gas of choice is helium. My background's always been oil and gas, and it's been kind of fun jumping over to a little different market just because, hey, it's a new and uprising industry that I think has potential, a lot of prospects in the future. So hopefully with this, I can kind of give you a little insight of what our company is doing, what we have done, some things that we've achieved on, kind of what the, if you want to, we can hit on helium and kind of where that market's going and go from there, my friend. So
I'm familiar with a lot of natural gas, coal bed methane. That's where I started my career with Schlumberger, Southern Alberta. Right now, natural gas is almost trending at $10. what does helium go for these days?
Helium is kind of dependent on grade. There's quite a few, as we all know. A lot of our party balloons, which first off, I appreciate you making me not suck helium and do this on with a high voice the whole time. That would have been probably a headache towards the end of the.
It would have been entertaining, and I think we could have doubled viewership. But you are welcome, sir.
Well, maybe we'll bench that for next time for sure. So there's, like I said, there's different grades, and can go anywhere, as if I remember correctly, you're like in the $20 MCF all up to anywhere from like 1,500 MCF. Your balloon grades, your entry level, some of your higher grades. For like MRI machines, they need a lot more purity level. We're talking like a 99.9995 purity for those. And then the newest market actually has been semiconductor manufacturing. The gas is needed to basically purify and ensure that our chips are made for our cell phones properly. And yeah, it's an upcoming market. And like you mentioned, actually, it's on natural gas. Most of our helium currently is a byproduct of natural gas. There's a lot of really big wells up in Wyoming that actually produce anywhere from, their gas has anywhere from like less than 1% helium, and which doesn't sound much, but shoot, when you're making, BCF of gas, it adds up relatively quickly. And it's been pretty good about supporting the market, but I think there's a couple holes, and that's where we decide to jump in and try and help out. So.
No, it's funny you mentioned Wyoming. We actually have, ARC, a guy came up to me recently, and same thing. They want to deal with their gas, but they also have a big presence of helium. And like you said, with those bigger, volumes, they have, something. And when you're talking 300, per cubic, million cubic feet, like it, there's profit to be made there. But back to Arizona and what you got going on.
Sure.
Let's start with, what was the biggest surprise? So you've worked in Alaska, you worked all over the U.S., drilling and completions. What was the first thing that shocked you about, the difference between drilling for oil and gas and then helium? What stood out the most?
Yeah, I mean, first off, I got to be thankful for my previous career, because I was able to kind of be exposed to quite a bit of different things across the U.S., like you mentioned, both on the D&C side. It's interesting. These wells, they're only 4,000 feet deep, and a lot of people think, "Oh man, that's just super easy." In fact, even myself, I jumped into it thinking, we'll just knock this out really quick, right? But a couple things, most wells that we drill, and most wells I've drilled before have always been on fluid, and we do a little different. We drill with air, which air is by no means a new technology. It's been around for a while. Just most plays they can't utilize that technology. So that's helped out quite a bit. But some of the big issues we have with it being so shallow is my formations are just very unconsolidated. They want to collapse. They want to fall apart on me. I have two very big aquifers. Fun fact, Arizona actually houses one of the largest aquifers in the lower 48, even though the terrain is relatively similar to the West Texas area, where it's somewhat flat and desertous and basically doesn't have a whole lot of water, but they have a bunch of it below them.
So. Awesome. Well, okay, so I'm not a drilling guy. I was a wireline guy, and for the most part, we always log fluid or oil or water-based muds. What, can you quickly go over what's drilling, with air kind of like?
So very relatively similar, where you're taking returns back to surface, but you're, the kind of old school ways we're able to because we're with just air, we're able to take returns back to a reserve pit. We'll drill an air / a very light foam for the dry sections, and then once we basically hit our water sections, we will drill as quickly as possible through them to get them cased off and isolated. Arizona is very protective, and for good reasons, very protective of their aquifers. So we do the best we can to get those aquifers isolated, so that there's no contamination later on in the future. We kind of pride ourselves in that, because we go a little above and beyond the restrictions or the regulations that the state requires. So anyhow, Once we get that drilled, in fact, actually one of the challenges that we had in this area, I told you it was very unconsolidated and very, very porous formations is our cementing practices. Before we had very issues, a lot of issues getting cement to surface, and yielded quite a bit of cement that was pumped. And I kind of teamed up with our local cementing company. We developed a very dense polymer spacer that basically plugs up those pore spaces. And once we kind of established that, man, we've been really doing well for that area. We've actually shared that technology with some of the other operators in that area, because it's kind of not just my problem, it's everybody's problem. And at the end of the day, it's nice if we're all kind of doing the same thing, because it helps the state out, understanding that we're all trying to protect our aquifers. So that was kind of fun challenge.
And that's got to help, drive some costs down too for everybody. If, everybody else starts using it, they can bring more supply in. That's got to kind of help as well. So that it's, strategic, correct?
For sure. Yeah, exactly. So,
well, speaking of that, you're in Arizona, you're not the Permian Basin where there's 100 different, competitors. Has that been a challenge getting the right kind of contractors and supplies out there?
Oh, definitely so. Definitely so. In fact, hey, if anybody in here wants to come help me out, I'm always on board. Yeah, that's
you're inviting a lot of emails there, sir.
That's a good point. That's a good point. So fun fact about Arizona. Arizona is a very heavily mining industry state that shares some similarities to oil and gas. So I've been able to pull some equipment from the mining side, but there's just enough differences that it's kind of frustrating. Most of my tools and technology are coming out of right now out of New Mexico, Farmington region. And then we've also been fortunate on getting some actual oil field wireline companies out of Vernal to come help us out. So definitely far spread. Unfortunately, I got lots of wait times, and it's kind of a logistic planning nightmare at some points. But it is fun. It is a challenge, but it's you gotta plan ahead, because I've always been spoiled in very heavily oil and gas plays where I can just pick up the phone and 15 minutes to 30 minutes later, I got tools and anything I need on location. So, but it still is good.
Well, after watching this, I'm sure you'll have people tripping over themselves to try their products out on Helium. So we talked about drilling.
Yeah.
The difference is there, and air and quickly, going over your water zones to isolate them. What about completions? Any big changes from completing, helium versus, a natural gas well?
No, not too much. These are straight vertical wells, so we're not talking like mega fracs like some of our unconventionals that we're doing. We are looking at doing some type of completions and frac jobs. However, the state does have regulations on a lot of basically anything that's pumped outside of casing. So we got to be mindful of that, and we're going through kind of the permitting process to get a little bit bigger frac jobs than what we're currently allowed to do. But at this point in time, it's an easy stimulation, create fracture, and then draw down and basically free flow some of our gas to surface, and try and get away and stay away from the water producing zones that we have down low. So
sounds very similar to any regular gas kind of well, correct?
Yeah, nothing too fancy yet. Of course, the other one too, I haven't mentioned, we're still in the process of actually developing a processing facility. I've got 8 wells under my belt so far, and all have been tested. But once we actually start bringing wells online, that'll help kind of with some of that design. But for now, it's kind of keep it simple and wait to see what the future brings.
So, drilling, a little bit of a challenge as far as keeping it dry, keeping your water zones isolated.
Mm-hmm.
Completions, the production phase, I guess that's about the same. You mentioned the processing facilities. Is that the same? How do you isolate that? Helium's a very small molecule. I think a lot of people realize or don't. Maybe they do now. What, any big challenges there versus your standard gas processing plant?
Oh man, I mean processing, that's my primary background, Keith. You know me, so there was no problems, issues. That's actually not true. Um, yeah, it's actually been quite fun. Now, the wells that we drill, we're fortunate in that we actually are producing all inert gases. So introduction of hydrocarbon in Arizona would have been a little bit more of a challenge, and we may find that in some of our other areas, but the primary focus right now is all inert. Like you mentioned, helium and I'm going to say hydrogen because that'll play here in a second are the two lightest and smallest molecules out there. So separating those can be somewhat of a challenge. In our wells, we're seeing trace hydrogen and helium. So one of the big challenges there is trying to split those two molecules apart, being so small. We actually kind of came with a relatively, my team helped develop an ingenious solution to that. They took a deoxygen unit and were able to change that and tweak that a little bit to on the initial stream of gas, I can actually turn that hydrogen into water and get rid of the hydrogen. Now, in the future, I'm hoping to find wells that produce enough hydrogen that can produce it and utilize it later on. But for right now, it's such a small trace, it's a bit of a nuisance gas. So we're going to turn that into water, get rid of the hydrogen, and then from there, we've decided to go down a PSA membrane technology, which is it's available on the market for lots of folks who are producing helium. And essentially what they are is they're filters that are about the size of your hair. I wouldn't know. I'll figure that out eventually, but they're filled membranes that are about the size of the thickness of a hair, and they're like little straws essentially, and you flow your gas through it at a specific temperature and pressure. And the way they use the terminology that our folks use is that slower gases or larger molecules will go through those straws slower, whereas your smaller ones go through faster. And you basically once that filter fills up with kind of some of the slow gas, and you got to purge and start over. So fun stuff. A lot of stuff I didn't know anything about, but I'm learning. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's quite a few different stages of filters and membranes, and then we at the end of the route, we're given whatever grade helium that we're trying to sell to. So.
You mentioned turning your hydrogen into water. How is that, like, turns into pure water? Is that a produced water that you got to get rid of? How do you deal with that water once you've created it?
For right now, it's going to be utilized. It's going to be stored, and we actually have a cementing company that's a part of that does my construction. That's going to take and utilize the water. The hope and dream actually is to take that water and reuse it as our cleaning agent for our solar panels, because our processing plant, I'll mention, is actually in a very remote location. And not only is it just remote, but our company has taken a stance that we'd like to be zero emissions as much as possible. So we're utilizing. We're trying to.
What? You're not an evil conglomerate trying to destroy the earth? What? Keeping everything recycled and clean? What?
I know.
That happens? That's a real life thing. Wow. Solar panels. And you didn't burst into flames when you guys went that route? Everything's okay?
No, it turns out it was fine, but finding some of that stuff nowadays is a challenge. I'm sure everybody can relate to the fact that good old supply chain is just killing it right now. So.
Oh, yes, sir. So you're reusing the water. You got solar panels. You're utilizing getting helium. Is the goal to make sure, have you been able to get to, without, I don't know, the grades, get to that processor grade that they want? Has some of it hit that? Some, maybe not all of it, but have you guys been able to achieve some of that?
We haven't been able to achieve it yet. We will with this. We feel pretty confident this facility. I actually have an onboard testing unit that can verify specific. Well, it can measure the purity level, so I can actually quantify that I'm reaching the grade requirements for whoever we're selling to. And essentially the way the processing plant works, the higher the grade, the slower the processing, the lower the grade, the faster I process it. So it's actually a pretty sweet little system. And you mentioned an individual that was building a modular system or building modular processing plants. It's exactly what ours is. It's basically a couple of Connexes and a couple of skids that have equipment on it, so that we can keep this thing relatively mobile if we wanted to move it to different areas. But yeah, like I said, it's trying to keep it
And
small.
I hear you got a great guy and a great deal on a on an aiming plant or something, didn't
I
you?
did. I did. I might as well give a shout out to Arc Industries for giving me an aiming plant that we may potentially utilize for this facility. If not this one, I definitely have other areas we'll produce that will have CO2. So we'll. It was a great find.
Oh, and I think you got a heck of a deal right at the time before the market exploded. So
Right
good on
there.
you, sir.
I know. I had to beg and plead a little bit, but I appreciate you helping us out.
Anytime, sir. So we're producing your ESG off the charts, I guess, because you got solar, you're utilizing the water. I'll throw it out there to anybody watching. I know Sherry Naismith had some questions. Sherry, if you can bring up your question, we'll see if James has the answer. Anybody else? You got questions for James? Throw it up there. If you're still watching, I don't know. The comments stopped coming in. I don't know. Maybe nobody's watching anymore. Maybe we can get into. I don't know if people know this, but if you really want to get to James, you get into karaoke because he is quite the. We're not going to say you're Elvis or anything, but at the same time, you love to have fun doing it, right?
Do for sure. So
there might be the odd photo of us singing the odd song together as well. Correct?
It's out there. It does happen.
It's why you got that aiming plan in the first place. I'm keeping it under wraps, right?
Gotcha. 10-4.
Siri, where are you? No, she typing. She had. Do I have to go back in my? I thought it was a pretty great question.
Oh, it didn't take much to stump me. So let's keep these relatively simple.
Well, I hope she's still there. Hang it. Well. Oh, we also had. I didn't see this. Ken Kelly. Ken, thanks for tuning in, sir. Ken is, we kind of ran into Ken up in, Amarillo, me and Jason, and then we turned out, he's helping you out with some.
So actually, give a shout out to Ken and his company. They're the piece that we're using for them. They're supplying trailers. So I mentioned on our power generation side, we're using generators as a backup. Hopefully, eventually, we'll have solar and batteries. So they're actually providing trailers so that I can run off of natural gas in the interim.
So there's Sherry's question.
Okay, there you go. Boom. Right now, I'm going to be using processed natural gas as the generation source. Once I get further along, it'll be solar
plant. I think you got it. I think you were going in the right direction. You were answering it. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's the only fuel source that I'll be using is just natural gas. We have identified some hydrogen in our area, and maybe hopefully I can swap over. Don't worry, Ken. I'm still going to need trailers to transfer that, so you're still in there. But but yes, for now it'll be natural gas, and then I'm waiting for some of my other generation stuff to show up, kind of the end of the beginning of next year, because of supply chain issues. So
getting this helium, we talked about Ken there, and I brought him up on the screen. So in the trailers, that's how you get the helium to market, correct? There isn't a helium pipeline nearby or something, conveniently.
No, there are actually a couple pipelines. I guess back in the day they used to have a natural gas pipeline, and I think there's a liquids one as well. Unfortunately, the maintenance was not kept up on those, and they actually converted those into I think internet pipeline. They have fiber optic run down them so that they can pump internet across the nation. Anyway, so there's no pipelines now. The good news is Arizona's becoming a very high tech type state. So a lot of the folks actually that were, I guess, working in California are kind of starting to move down. Intel, I think, has a plant there, and there's a couple other big names. So they're actually in direct need of helium. So it's a simple send them a truck and they take the product. So for now, most of our end users are within about 300 miles of our plant, which
Wow.
is relatively economic for them. So we can actually just truck it.
Mike Cummings, you sent your request, connection request. He has some question. I don't know what, Mike. You got to ask the questions here. That's what makes the show exciting. Come on, sir. Drill 2 test wells for helium and Qatar. It's a different animal for sure.
Oh,
Come on,
yeah.
Mike. Share a question. You know you got it. Come on. I think here Sherry goes. Understand helium drilling that uses hydrogen as fuel source. So it's just more common to have hydrogen than natural gas with the helium. Is that kind of the reason, James, or is there another reason?
There are. Yeah, bring that up. Yeah, just understand that rather. Okay, that uses hydrogen. Our issue is supply chain. I actually am fortunate that I have nitrogen. I have a natural gas processing facility very close to where I'm at. Getting hydrogen as a fuel source is a little bit farther reach. So at that point in time, I can't. It's not economic right now. The most ideal is if I could drill some hydrogen wells close to me and then swap over and then go from there. And I should be able to not only run the processing plant, but actually start selling hydrogen as a fuel source in that region.
Excellent, sir. Andrea's got a great. We'll let you. Thank you for your insight. How many rigs do you think are drilling for helium in the U.S. currently? What is the total depth of these wells? Production? What type of completion? So I think the completion has been relatively the same. It makes sense.
So again, it's kind of a two-piece. Most of helium, or a lot of the helium, is coming from natural gas. So you're looking at like your traditional Bakken wells. There's wells in Wyoming. Now if you're asking for wells or companies that are primarily sourcing just helium, the Holbrook Basin's kind of the hot topic. And most of their profiles are similar to what I'm doing, where I'm basically running a 4.5-inch long string to surface, which is what I know that my area is. And then up in the Four Corners region, they're seeing same type situations. There's a couple of folks in Four Corners because the formations change. If I remember right, they're running 5.5-inch tieback to surface. But again, they're also relatively shallow and simple small frac completions. The Colorado and New Mexico side is pumping a little more sand, or is actually pumping sand, I should say, because you have to have actual permits approved to pump sand in Arizona. So, but I can't speak exactly to what they're doing. I just know that they're pumping pretty decent size, maybe anywhere from 30 to maybe 100,000 pounds, which for a vertical well is a decent size. Obviously, an unconventional, it's not even close to what they're doing. But for these small little wells, that's a pretty good size.
Cool. And you mentioned you're drilling around 4,000 feet, correct?
4,000 feet, correct? Yeah, and that seems like it's in the plus or minus 1,000 feet in our region.
And you mentioned you're sharing a little bit of what you guys are doing on the cementing side, or some of those technologies with some of your counterparts. Would you say, as far as rig count, do you think there's at least 10 more or less rigs the U.S. kind of searching, ballpark it for your own?
Yeah, if I was going to swag, I know that in the Holbrook Basin, there's really only about 2 or 3 because there's just the rig availability is very small. The contractor that we're utilizing that we've teamed up with actually runs our rig, Drake Energy Services out of Farmington. They've been supplying most of the work for that region, and then there's a couple folks. So I'd say about 3 or 4 in our area. All over, that's a tough one to say because I couldn't guess, but at least I can go for that, probably 10 total, lower 48.
Awesome. No, you ever run into H2S?
Actually, where we're at, no, we don't have any sulfur in the area, so I don't have to deal with H2S yet. Once you kind of start pushing it more towards the Four Corners region, you do see a little more introduction of sulfur. So the H2S is actually can be encountered. So we're fortunate where we're at, and then we got a pretty hazard free drilling area.
So, and then Sherry came on my show, and about 4 or 5 months ago. They have a pretty neat technology that noble plasma, converting H2S to hydrogen. Maybe if Jason's still watching, I sent you some info on that. Maybe that's something. And if you ever run into it, James,
Yeah,
there's a potential new technology. Amber, I've been told NASA is the biggest consumer of helium because of its cooling capability. Where else is the product valuable for the consumer? So we all know about balloons,
yeah.
semiconductors.
Yeah, I can broaden a little bit on the NASA side. So now NASA will utilize helium as a displacement gas in the rocket boosters because it's a very dry and very clean gas. And then also it's very light, which they're a little more concerned about. Hydrogen works as well, but as we know, the Hindenburg kind of proved it's a little more explosive, so they kind of like to use that. The biggest primary user actually was the medical industry, MRIs. Like you mentioned, helium has a boiling temperature, I think at negative 243 or 253 Kelvin. And it's able to actually cool down basically those magnets at a very, very good rate. Now, it wasn't until recently that they just developed a recirculation system for those magnets. So we're going to start probably seeing that market kind of taper off a little bit for good reason, because they should be reusing that instead of just venting it to atmosphere. The up and coming one is the tech companies, all the semiconductors that we're making. I know I mentioned that before. Semiconductor is a very small chip and houses a lot of copper. We were told in a conference that the semiconductors used in your phone, if you were to straighten that out, would stretch out, I think, 3 stories actually. And that semiconductors, I think, 1 centimeter by 1 centimeter by like 2 or 3 thick. And
Wow.
when you're laying copper in that small, it's got to be in a very pure gas to make sure that there's no impurities within that chip. So that's a market that's really starting to step up. Like you mentioned, balloons, weather balloons are really the biggest users. You go to the store and you buy gas for party balloons. That is a market, but weather balloons are a big end user for on the balloon market.
Wow. Blowing my mind. Okay. Another question. What are your thoughts on helium down in southeast Colorado? Do you know anything about that area?
Southeast Colorado is an area that does actually agree. Looks like it has some actual helium. The biggest issue we've known with Colorado is they're a little bit behind on drilling permits. We're wanting to jump into that region, but they've just now opened up new drilling permits and they're working through backlogs. So unfortunately, we're seeing about a year plus out before we can probably get something. Hopefully something can change, and then that's a region that we can kind of start jumping on.
What legacy basins do you utilize as a good background knowledge base to tailor your operations in the Holbrook?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Randall. Always want to know how you did your homework.
Yeah, so actually, I got a U pull on some of the North Dakota wells that I was drilling, and then the biggest one would be Alaska. A lot of the surfaces you drill through permafrost are very similar to kind of what I'm drilling. Obviously, my ground's not permafrost, but it's that super porous, super unconsolidated formations. So that's really helped kind of my background. And then on the completion side, dealing with big pore pressure, big porosity, similar to what Alaska's got, is kind of something that I would say has kind of really helped me out considerably. And then there's other areas too where completions were a big deal. I've got some hands-on experience on a bunch of completions up in North Dakota, and that kind of introduced me to some of the downhole equipment that we're running. And it's kind of kind of been a fun road where I've gone and to where I'm at. Looking forward to where we head in the future.
So this is tally book troubleshooting. How many wells have you drilled now for Helium? You were 100% in control.
Under my control, I have now just finished 4. We finished up my 4th well about a week and a half ago, and it's one of those that still learning. Earlier this year I drilled 3 back to back and got a lot of data that's kind of helped us out for the future. Some of the other areas we had some issues on, we've been able to identify and work through some of those problems. But yeah, so I'm at 4 under the belt so far, 8 total with the company, and yeah, looking to do some more in the future.
Any big lessons you can share from the first one you've been involved with to the last one? Anything that came apparent, or I don't know, anything at least shareable?
For sure. Yeah, no, for sure. Like I said, the biggest one we identified was that there are 2 big aquifers in that region, and at this point in time, trying to drill through both aquifers and managing water at surface is a challenge. I would love to use a mud to try and hold that back, but I just know that I would go on severe losses and be very costly. So that was one of our big factors, because we drill a 3-string well and we isolate both 2 aquifers with the first 2 strings, and that's helped out immensely. And then we've also identified that we do have quite a few salt zones that they're not like a flowing salt like what you'll see up in North Dakota and other areas. It's they're static, but they still, when they get hydrated, they love to wash out. So you end up with obviously severely overgauged holes. But no, like I said, it's one of those learning curve every single time, and we make and strive for improvements, and we're getting better and better at what we're doing so far. So we kind of toot our own horn, but we've had much more success. Unfortunately, some of our other operators have had some challenges.
Toot away, sir. That's why you're on the show.
So anyway, but yeah, we try and do the best we can and help other folks and try and produce as much gas as possible.
So we have a latecomer. I don't know if you can quickly summarize. So you're using 4.5, correct?
Yeah. So I'll start from the top down. We're usually doing like a 12.25 inch down to 1,000 feet, setting 9 5/8, and then we will pick up an 8.75. And we've now deepened this second string. We're doing a much shallower, but we're now going a little bit deeper. So the 8.75 will take down to about 2,500 feet to 2,700 feet, set 7-inch, and we'll cement that back to surface. And then after that, we jump to 6 1/8, and we'll drill that to our granite basement, which is somewhere around 4,000 feet. And we'll tie back 4.5 to surface and cement that back. BHA designs are relatively similar, or simple is what I meant to say, not similar, simple. We are utilizing stabilized BHAs, but it's all basically just dumb iron. In the state of Arizona, they don't actually require as much surveying, so we usually just we'll handle that at the end of the well. So, but
with wireline or what?
Yeah. Just a wireline drop tool if we need to.
Are you logging through casing, or are you just doing in bare hole? I don't. What are you? Or is that secret?
No, that's actually not secret, but it's something. In my opinion, it's kind of an industry funny to me. I mean, every geologist has to have open hole logs. Open hole logs is the only way to go. It's the best thing ever. But I want to give that to my geology team. They do a great job, but we do have a lot of hole collapse issues. So we're trying to move towards a cased hole solution to try and simplify and reduce cost.
That was that was what Schlumberger was all about. Years ago, 20 years ago, I aged myself here. When I started out, it was analysis behind casing. Sonic logs went through. There was even, you could get a kind of a density. You had your neutron. They even came up with a tool. It was years ago. You could get some induction and resistivity. So it was. Yeah. I'm sure they've improved since back in my days, for sure.
Right. Yeah, we only get better over time, right? So
Awesome. So we've covered helium, the market. Actually, you know what? I don't recall. You said you're hauling this to one of your customers is within 300 miles, correct?
correct, correct.
What are they? What's their market? Are they using it medical? Is it a medical type? What are they
Uh,
utilizing the helium for?
we have, and this is where I got to be a little bit careful because I am
Oh,
publicly traded, but I
okay.
can, I can hit on some of the high points. Yes, there's medical, there's military applications, and that's kind of our focus. And then we are kind of looking at some of a balloon industry possibly, but yeah, I kind of have a broad spectrum.
No, I've thought it's very neat. Like we're always so concentrated on the Permian Basin, but here you got this other little area, a niche market that could grow. And I think maybe even in your own guys' best interest, if a few other operators got in there and grew it, well, then you got extra contractors, drives down some costs as well. So good for everybody, right? You guys
Yeah,
have your leases and
yeah,
you know, and help supply chain here at home. Then we're not trying to import helium. We're producing it right here, correct?
exactly. So it helps everybody, and it helps kind of the U.S. market develop, and something we're going to need for the future, and and look forward to hopefully helping supply for that.
Yes, sir. Any other questions out there or anybody tuning in late? I saw Janie Snelson, I think one of her tuning in. Yes, she did. She was here. I don't know if she's still here, but Janie Snelson, of course, is the one to introduce us, correct?
That's actually definitely true. She's my wife's second parents or Midland parents. Good old Janie, that Midland mom, has always
Yeah.
helped out numerous
She
times.
yeah, she's kind of like my kids' second set of like grandparents and stuff too, right? So my dad's in Canada, so she'd always come in, and it was awesome. So she's great. Shout out to Janie Selson. Oh, she is still watching. I'm surprised she hasn't been pulled away in a meeting or something. She's very, very, very powerful, very busy lady. Great topic. Thank you, Travis, for tuning in. Very much appreciated.
Yeah, just
Anybody
to
else? Questions out there? While we're waiting, so in the past you were an oil and gas guy. Where did you start out? What was the first basin you drilled at? You know, where did James get his start? A little bit
where
of
did I
history.
get basically born and raised in West Texas. Started off in Odessa, but oil field. I'm an oil field
Wait,
brat.
you grew up in West Texas and no big accent? What's going
I
on,
know,
man?
It's because I went to Louisiana after that, and that accent got me messed up. And then I ended up finishing up school in high school and college up in Oklahoma. So I'm just kind of all over the place. But I after college, I came back down to this beautiful area, and actually worked with Baker Hughes as a drill bit engineer, just kicking bits off at rigs for quite some time, and ended up going to Oklahoma for a little bit, and then coming back to West Texas for with ConocoPhillips, and then that's basically who I basically need to commend basically my career and background from, because they were fortunate enough to send me quite a few different places and train me in a lot of different things to kind of get me where I'm at. So yeah, I'm
No,
a
sir. It's
West Texas boy.
a nice little trajectory. You got your career path there, a little bit of everything, which allows you to now helium. Is that where you gonna stay for a while? Or do you have other? Is that
Yeah,
something?
that's helium's our primary focus. We are looking at and kind of getting into some of the hydrogen as well, because that's definitely a popular topic, and I think it's a good market to be chasing down. And yeah, so in the near future, that's where I see we're at. We'll be staying away from the hydrocarbon.
Excellent. Perfect,
Just a
sir.
quick, just a quick shout out, if you don't mind,
Go
because
ahead. It's your show.
couldn't have got here without a couple of folks around here, vendor wise. Elite, they took care of some of my modeling for me. Appreciate you guys. Warren Cat, both Midland and Odessa, they've helped out immensely. PSB Industries, they did our AD oxygen unit, and General, and that's the one that's designing our actual processing facility. Ken, like I mentioned, Kelly up in Arlington, or sorry, Amarillo, that is providing our trailers. And there's a couple others. Those are some of our high points. Just want to thank you guys for getting us where we're at.
Awesome, man. Love shout outs like that. I hope they're watching, and I hope they I don't know, they can copy, move it on their own LinkedIn page, steal it.
There you
We
go.
can use
There
all
you
the
go.
exposure we can get.
Yep.
You know, the industry, I do the show for good PR and stuff. Any lessons going from, helium drilling from the oil, we talked a lot about what you took from the oil and gas to helium. Anything that you learned in helium that you could, suggest maybe oil and gas adopt?
I'm sure there's all kinds of things we could identify. But you kind of put me on the spot now.
Oh, no, hey.
I mean, I guess some of the cementing stuff. It's interesting. I actually what we developed, we took back over to a couple folks around here, and it's helped them out. ConocoPhillips is running some of that space. There's a couple other things too that I want to try from the oil and gas industry to hopefully simplify my process. But yeah, there's always areas where we can always extend to both sides.
I like the fact you guys are incorporating, using that water to, clean solar panels is the goal,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like saying something like that, I think would shock a lot of people outside the industry. And I'll make sure my wife tells all her manufacturing friends at Nordic.
There you go. There you go. So got to use what you got.
Oh, we got a question here. Let's see. Before we finish up, quick, James, are you using seismic at all in your exploration efforts?
Interesting. We actually, yes, we ran some seismic about a couple of years ago. The results we kind of got back were mixed. We're still actually processing that seismic. And it's one of those. It's been a little bit challenging. I know some other operators north of us are able to utilize seismic, so it's something that we know is available. But at this point in time, the data that we got back just needs a little more tweaking for what we've got. So maybe in the future we'll utilize a little bit more. But these formations don't really have a lot of differentiating factors to identify different zones quite yet. So we've kind of struggled with that from my understanding. So.
Awesome, sir. Okay. Any other little shout outs, announcements, events? Where can, are you going somewhere where maybe somebody could walk up to you and ask you in person about helium? Is there anything you got a golf tournament you going to? Anything?
Unfortunately, I'm about to run back out to Arizona for a couple of weeks. I got to complete a well and then get some of our some of our processing construction underway. There is a helium conference that's coming up in December in Houston that I'll definitely be attending. And
maybe we go together.
What's that?
You want to go together? Share a room?
I think we should. Why not?
Excellent. Oh, couple. So he wants to know if it was 2D or 3D seismic.
It's 2D seismic.
Okay. And then Justin Sheffy. I don't want to say anything. Listen, just one question. My gas markers, have you used to identify? Gas markers.
I gotta ask, is that from a logging standpoint, or are you saying it's like a mass spectrometer or live feed while drilling? Because we're recording while drilling, and we will use those to identify points of interest. And then once we go back in and run logs, we recalibrate to what we think. There's formations that are hydrocarbon bearing. We've identified a couple gas bearing, but we've also gotten false indications from quote unquote gas markers. So we're still tweaking that side a little bit to get our logging dialed in.
So he clarifies mass spec.
Mass spec. Okay. Yes. Yeah. We are using a Schlumberger mass spectrometer for all of our wells, which has helped out immensely on kind of getting some base ideas of where some of our gas is at.
C1, C10.
Yes. We're all those different gases. The primary focus obviously is helium, hydrogen, argon, CO2. We're recording everything, but I'm always monitoring some of the high point gases.
Excellent, sir. And one more time. So Mark Lange with current value of helium. So it ranges from anywhere. What did you say? $20 to 1,500, right?
Yeah,
Depending on the purity.
purely dependent on purity quality requirements by industries. So
Excellent. Love the knowledge. Got my dictionary out. Excellent. You've been more than generous with your time, sir. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. We'll have to do this again soon.
yeah, for sure. You guys have any questions, reach out to me. And like I said, looking forward to it. Thanks again for bringing me on, Keith. And we'll be chatting.
So if people out there aren't connected, you're on LinkedIn, right? You'll take
Yes,
a LinkedIn connection and you can go from there, right?
yeah, there's a lot of James Hayeses, and right now I'm holding a big fish. Need to change that, but for now, if you're looking for me, that's how you can find me.
Oh, they can look on my profile here. There's a nice picture of you, what you look like on LinkedIn. That's where we got the picture from. So once again, thank you, sir. Really appreciate it. You
Excellent.
have a wonderful day, and everybody, thanks for tuning in. Great to learn about a little bit of helium here. I was shocked on a few things, so I'm glad keep doing these, from the little compression ones we do, the refineries. Let's do some dehighs here in the next little while. We'll get it going here. So till next time, everybody, that's how you troubleshoot.